Republican lawmakers are set to hold an event to lay out their tax plan, and that's just moments away at this point. So let's bring in Chris Plante, a syndicated radio talk show host, and Leslie Marshall, a Fox News contributor and syndicated radio talk show host. Great of both of you to be here. Good to see you. Leslie, I'll start with you first. This is a highly anticipated moment. It is a big moment, and I'll reference the American stock market. It has been rising in anticipation of this tax reform plan, and the big unveil is set to happen in just moments.
Well, it's interesting, Sandra, that you bring up Wall Street, because you have to have that type of money for this plan to benefit you. The reality is, like Republicans normally do, is they make a lot of cuts with deductions and things like that. But the lower income families in this country aren't filing tax returns with deductions if they're able to file tax returns at all. So there's still no benefit for that portion. Also, what we're hearing, some of the, obviously leaks of this blueprint, are that even though there are some deductions on the one hand, there are things on the other that will possibly offset that. The concern here also is there is not bipartisan support, and I'm not sure, quite frankly, Sandra, that they're going to get the votes. I think we're going to see a very similar repeat of the trying to repeal Obamacare, even though the Freedom Caucus is thumbs up.
Well, Chris, let's get you in here, because we know that this plan nearly doubles the standard deduction to $12,000 for individuals, $24,000 for families. It basically increases the amount of personal income that is tax-free. Republicans say that this targets the middle class.
Yeah, look, this is a tax cut for the middle class and for the lower income people. And as you said, a $24,000 standard deduction for a married couple rather than $12,000 is huge for lower income people. It's gigantic. It's also targeting the middle class for tax cuts across the board. It's also hopefully stimulating economic activity by cutting the corporate tax rates from 35% to 20%, putting us more in line with the rest of the world, by the way. And it doesn't provide any tax relief for upper income brackets. And in fact, according to one of the leaks, there's even a penalty in there for the highest income earners, which I know will make the left happy because they love punishing success. And also you hear Senator Schumer and others talking about how there's too much in here for corporations, for big corporations. I mean, this is just the dumbest, most insincere argument that you can possibly...
So let's talk about that aspect of it, Leslie. Do you see any good in that? I mean, Chris makes a valid point that there is a big focus on lowering the tax burden for corporations, for small businesses. And you just heard from the president. He asked for 15%. For that drop in the corporate tax rate from 35, he asked for 15%. He said that was open to negotiation. 20, he's okay with 20%. That is still a substantial tax cut for corporations.
Again, who owns these corporations? We talk about these small business owners, and we're not seeing, and by the way, Chris, I really want you to succeed, okay? Just to let you know, as a Democrat, I do. I relish in that.
It's just America.
But when we look at what we're hearing, we don't know for those brackets what are the incomes associated with those percentages, and certainly that will be more telling. I am a small business owner. Like everyone else in America, I want to pay less taxes like everyone else as an individual in a corporation. But at the end of the day, what offsets the benefits, that's what I want to see. And you have to have bipartisan support on this, or it's going to be problematic, not just at the polls, but as we saw with the health care, because I don't think Republicans have all the votes that they believe they do.
So, Chris, what about some of those loopholes that critics say concerns them? A possible loophole for rich investors, lawyers, doctors, others. Administration officials say they will design measures to prevent any abuses, is the way they have responded to that criticism.
Well, loopholes, Washington is famous for creating carve-outs and loopholes for special constituents and interests. There's no surprise there. And I'd like to see fewer. I think most conservatives would like to see fewer rather than more. But you want to target them toward areas that will stimulate economic growth. That's the point here. Government is not supposed to be punitive all the time, Leslie. It's not about targeting corporations. How dare they make money? We need to take more of their money. It's about stimulating economic activity connectivity, all right? And that's a good idea. That benefits everyone. It creates jobs. It creates wealth. It's good for the country and for the economy, and that's good for everyone. You see, it's the class warfare stuff. And if you're a small business owner, you shouldn't argue against your own self-interest, of course, but I know it's party policy that you have to do that. So, I'll cut you some
Leslie,
slack on that.
I go back to referencing the stock market, and the reason I do that is because even just the president campaigning on this promise of tax cuts and tax reform in this country, it has injected so much optimism to the point that you have seen this stock market breaking records on a daily basis. What about that optimism? Why not? The small businesses, CEOs of major corporations, they have said they feel more optimistic in the current environment of this president.
Well, I think the Democrats are hell-bent on making sure that they dash that optimism by and Leslie's talking about bipartisanship. There's been no bipartisanship from Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer on anything.
Let me get Leslie's response to that, though.
Chris, to your point, Pelosi and Schumer have not been invited to sit at the table for these meetings, first of all. And Sandra, with respect to the market, if you look back during Reagan and you look back during George W. Bush, as much as Chris is trying to school me on this, I'd like to school with some history on that. With regard to that, before Reaganomics and before the idea that George W. Bush had to invest in our economy, what we saw when we gave breaks to the upper 1% and 2% echelons in this country of earners is we saw these people pocket the money or invest in bonds, Turkish bonds, for example.
To be clear.
They didn't.
I have to wrap it there.
We saw economic growth and then it went down. And we saw economic growth and then it went down.
Guys, there's a lot to get to here. Thanks to both of you, Chris and Leslie, for joining us. All right, lawmakers unveiling their tax reform framework. Let's bring in Chris Plant, a syndicated radio talk show host. Leslie Marshall is also back with us, a Fox News contributor and syndicated radio talk show host. Chris, I'll go to you first. Are they making their points clear? Are they selling this?
Honestly, I think they've probably got some more selling to do. You're going to need to fill in some of the blanks and provide details, and this may not be the appropriate setting to go into all of the arcane details of tax reform. Always an exciting topic, but the details I expect will come out this afternoon, and they'll be hotly debated. And the Democrats will pretend that they're fiscally responsible and only concerned about the middle class, and we'll have a big food fight over it. And honestly, can I just say, the Democrats have put themselves in a situation where not only are they hell-bent on obstructing whatever it is that President Trump wants to do, but they also want to impede economic growth. They are incentivized to impede economic growth because if President Trump and his economic plans and this tax reform produce great economic results, that's bad news for the Democrats. And they have a vested interest in stopping that from happening, perverse as that may sound.
Leslie, I want to get your reaction to what we just heard from the House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Kevin Brady on this tax plan, saying we're closer than ever. This is our year to chart a new course. Do you see this happening?
No. And the reason I don't see it happening is it's not even the votes, it's the money. How are they going to pay for it? And this is an issue, and this is where some of the no votes might come up from the Republicans. Another thing that the Republicans have done here is they've put it all on themselves by not working with the Democrats at all, because this is an issue, quite frankly. Tax reform is an issue where you can get bipartisan support. A majority of Americans seem to lean more to the right, myself included, fiscally. A majority of Americans don't want to see, corporations benefit more, like Warren Buffett said his secretary get a better, he get a better tax break than his secretary. And Americans certainly, on a bipartisan level, want to see jobs come back. But Chris, I would agree with regarding the details, and the devil is in the details. If you have a deduction on the one hand, does something on the other hand offset that? And at the end of the day, not only do you have the votes, but do you have the money to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? And that's I think is going to be the problem.
Leslie,
and the red light going
a lot of people writing into me saying, can you please remind her that most 401ks, most people's retirement accounts are locked up in those corporations that you seem to not want to have thrive.